Hello everyone! Welcome to a very special YouTube video, where I will be taking all my Discord friends and ranking them on how much I like them. No, I'm going to be ranking them on how I think they do as an imposter in Among Us. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that this is a god-awful setup that I have. I am indeed doing this in MS Paint, and the reason why is because I tried to go to the tier list website and they wanted me to log into my Twitter, and they wanted to be able to post things on my Twitter. I read the fine print and that's all the stuff it said. And I was like, I really don't want to allow them to do that. So I just got a generic tier list on Google Images and copy and pasted it over to MS Paint. And that's what I'm going to be using. I'm just going to drag the names up here manually. So forgive me. And yes, actually, this is written in Comic Sans. I'm so glad you noticed. I am going to be listing everyone I know in no particular order, just from the start to the end. If you are not on this list, forgive me. The reason why you are not on is because I feel like we don't play together enough for me to properly rank you. And with that being said, let me explain how I'm going to rank people. I'm going to rank people's imposter skills based on how often they get kills, how often they get away with getting kills, how often they win, and how often they act suspicious during the crew meeting times. That is, when a body is called or the button is reported. How convincing they are. So let's get right to it. The first person I'm going to be ranking is Claude. And I will be ranking him... Whoops, not what I meant to do. I will be ranking him as A tier. A for Claude. And the reason I'm going to be ranking Claude as A tier is... The reason is because he consistently gets kills. He doesn't fool around a lot at the beginning. He's willing to take risky plays. He is convincing during the meetings. He knows when to keep his mouth shut. He knows when to talk. And he is often able to convince people that it has to be someone else because he was somewhere else. Claude's use of vents, I'd say, are one of the best among everyone I have listed here. He is willing and able to use vents and get from one part of the ship to the other and find someone who's on the other side of the ship and hang out with them for long periods of time, convincing them that he couldn't have done it because he was over there. Now, what is Claude's weaknesses? I feel that when he is imposter, during the talking times, he tends to be quieter, or he tends to make, and if he's not quieter, he tends to make more accusatory tones, more accusatory methods. So that's why I'm not ranking him in S tier. I also feel that sometimes his risky kills do not pay off because someone sees them. And so people will do the old 50-50 on him, and he'll get expelled out. Alright, moving on. Our next person is going to be Alimis. Alimis stands for A tier. A for Alimis. I am also going to be ranking Alimis as A tier. That's 2 A tiers right off the bat. And the reason I'm going to be ranking Alimis as A tier is she is convincing, she is willing to make the risky plays, similar to Claude, but she also knows when to hold out. She is willing to take a soft-spoken route, or when she gets accused, she oftentimes, almost always, has a defense at the ready. She will say, I was in reactor, I was here, I was there, blah blah blah, and she figures out how to convince other people it couldn't have been her. What is her glaring weaknesses, though? Her weaknesses, 1, humorously enough, her statistics. She seems to get imposter far more than anyone else. I don't know why. This might just be a one of those effects where people think something is happening more often than it is. She might actually get imposter more often or less often, and we just think she gets it more often because of how good she is. But people are almost suspicious of Alamise by default because of how often she seems to get imposter. And so it's difficult for her to convince people that she isn't one. In addition, if she makes it all the way to late game, people are going to be very suspicious of her because of how good she is at the game. I think that's her main weakness. The fact that she is good at the game. She needs to... How can she improve this? Perhaps start intentionally failing? I know that sounds crazy, but if we're doing like really long game theory here, if she starts intentionally messing up as imposter, that could actually buy her time, because then she'll be able to convince people that it couldn't have been her, she wouldn't make such a stupid play, which she has tried to do before. But I think you'd have to develop it a bit more, Alamise, is what I'm trying to say. Alright. So I think, yeah, I'd say Claude and Alamise are very similar in terms of skill level. They have similar playstyles, and they have similar convincing skills, but they also have the problem of their, like, style of play changes when you're an imposter versus a crewmate. They tend to do things differently as an imposter, and they tend to speak differently as an imposter. I think that's their main problem. We might talk about this more later, I don't know. I'm kind of making this up as I go. Let's talk about Dustin. Dustin Vlad. Dustin, I'm sorry, you're C tier. Why am I putting Dustin as C tier? It's because I think that he is not aggressive enough. Dustin, I don't think you go hard enough, and I don't think you're willing to make the risky plays. And you're going to find this is a common problem for a lot of lower tier imposters. They're not willing to go for the big plays at the beginning. And I know it's hard to commit to a kill, right? Because once you get a kill, for like a good 10-20 seconds, you are very exposed, you are right next to the body. Even if you vent, people will be able to figure it out. Like, if you kill someone in the Skeld, in electrical, and then vent the medbay, and someone's like, oh, I just saw Dustin in medbay, and the kill was in electrical, he probably vented there. It's the scary thing to do. But you have to be willing to make those plays. And if you don't, you're going to fail, because by that point, if you don't get enough kills early, all the crewmates are going to group up together in the endgame once people start finishing their tasks, and it's going to be near impossible to win. So I also think Dustin doesn't go hard enough during the chats, during the meetings. He needs to be able to defend himself. You have to be able to come up with a excuse for what you're doing or why you weren't there. And I feel like you, Dustin, you tend to not come up with reasons for what you're doing. You tend to kind of freeze up and not explain why you're doing what you're doing, and instead just get accusatory toward the person who was accusing you. So if you work on that, I think you could get better at imposter. Alright, myself. And I'm trying not to be biased here, by the way. For myself or for other people, I'm trying to rank people on how I legitimately think they play and how good they are. That being said, I'm SSS tier. No, I think I consider myself A tier. Why do I consider myself A tier? Not to, you know, get all self-fulfillment, but I think that I am similar to Claude and Alamise. I'm willing to make risky plays. I am fairly convincing towards the meeting aspects, and similar to them, I'm able to convince people of what happened. I recently had a game where I pretended to go into a hallway with Lucas. I doubled back. I killed Red right as Alamise was working on the reactor. Then I vented out of the room into the hallway. Then, when Alamise found the body, as she would because it was literally right beneath her, she didn't think it was me because I made the play of pretending to go into the hallway. That's the kind of thing you have to be willing to do as imposter. You have to make those risky plays. And I do think I, personally, am one of the most risk-taking imposters. that gets away with it. You can take risks all you want as imposter, but that doesn't matter. What's important is that you get away with it. So that's why I would rate myself as A tier. Why am I not S tier? I don't think I'm S tier because my aggressive playstyle all too often has backfired on me, and I kill someone in full view of someone else. If the crewmates are on point, which they usually are, they'll simply say, vote both of us out, and that's a loss for me. An imposter getting voted out and a crewmate getting voted out is a loss for the imposters in my eyes, because there are way more crewmates than there are imposters. How can I improve? Get better at trying to figure out when and how I should kill. Let's move on. Lucas. Lucas, as a crewmate, you're a great crewmate. But as an imposter, I'm sorry, you're D tier. Why? The main problem. You do not have a microphone. If you do not have a microphone, you can't defend yourself. You can't accuse other people in a timely fashion. We only have like 2 minutes to talk when a group meeting is called, and you don't have a microphone. And so if you report the body, we have to wait for you to explain what happened. If we ask you where you are, we have to wait a good 10 seconds to hear your excuse. And a lot of information can be exchanged through words in that 10 seconds. So I think if you get a microphone, that would bump you up to C, maybe even B tier. That's your main problem. Outside of microphone-related problems, I think you tend to play rather passively when you shouldn't. And if you were willing to go for earlier kills, I think that would also help your imposter game a lot. Let's move on. Noah. Oh, Noah. And again, I'm trying not to be biased here. That being said, S tier. And I think Noah is the only S tier we have. Why do I think Noah is S tier? He is willing... He does everything right, just like everyone in A tier. But on top of that, what he really excels at, what he's really good at, is the mind games. Noah's, especially during the crew meetings, when Noah does mind games, he is willing to go on a rampage against someone. When he gets his mind set on someone getting accused, and this goes for when he's a crewmate too, that's another thing, he's consistent from when he is a crewmate and he is an imposter. He is very stubborn on who he thinks is an imposter. That can be a problem during crewmate. That would probably bring his crewmate ranking down in a tier list. But on an imposter tier list, the fact that he is very stubborn both as a crewmate and as an imposter helps him a lot. Because he sounds convinced when he's accusing someone as an imposter. He sounds almost exactly the same as when he's a crewmate and accusing someone. That's Noah's big play, is that he can convince people that he thinks he's right, because he does think he's right. On top of that, he is very, very good at emotionally manipulating people. I'm sorry, Noah, but the way you play, you will, if someone accuses you of being the imposter, you will act like they have accused you of murdering your own mother. You will go hard on how wrong they are and how you couldn't have done it and how you are a poor victim of this evil person who's accusing you. They have to be the imposter because I, Noah, would never do it. I'm a good person. And obviously it's more nuanced than what I just said, but I truly think that is your strength, that you were able to convince people on an emotional level that you cannot be the imposter. If he gets caught in the act, not to say Noah is a perfect imposter, because he's not. No one is. He can get caught, he can get expelled, but even when he's been caught red-handed, he might still convince some of the crewmates that it couldn't be him. And and on that occasion, that's some impressive stuff. As in, someone saw him kill and then says it. He can still maybe convince people that it wasn't him. And I think that's his true strength. Hedgehog. C tier. Why am I putting Hedgehog at C tier? Why? Because she throws for the memes. And I respect that, I really do. But I had a match with her recently where we were double imposter, and she killed Dragon right in front of someone. just to rub it in his face. And I respect that. I really do. I am a meme connoisseur myself. I respect the memes. I love the memes. But on a tier list level, that's very bad play. She also tends to get much quieter when she's imposter. When she's a crewmate, she is all over the discussions. She's talking about what she was doing, where she was been. But when she's an imposter, she tends to hang back and not discuss what she thinks is going on. That's why I have to put her in C tier. She has some obvious tells, and she likes to throw for the memes. I think if you improved on those two things, Hedgehog, you could get up to B or A tier. Dragon, I'm going to be putting you with your girlfriend at C tier. Actually, you know what? No, Dragon, you get B tier. Why am I putting Dragon at B tier? Because, unlike Hedgehog, he is not nearly as telling when he is imposter. During the meetings, he is convincing. He's willing to go hard. But similar to Hedgehog, he also likes to throw for the beams sometimes. Which I appreciate. So, I think when Dragon is playing, he can definitely get wins, especially when it's like a double imposter and he has someone backing him up. Although I have seen him do rather well with single imposter. But I do think that he could improve on his kill times and kill places. Dragon, I think you're fine during the meeting times. It's during the actual gameplay that I think you struggle a bit. Alex. I'm gonna be honest, Alex. D tier. Why am I putting you at A tier? You are not aggressive enough. You do not kill when you should kill. You do not vent when you should vent. You do not sabotage when you should sabotage. You don't do the things imposters are supposed to do, and it will cost you the game. You wait far too long to start doing things, and if you can get through that, and like I said earlier with Lucas, it's difficult to make the big commitments, but if you do, I think it would help a lot, and I think that would really improve your imposter gameplay. On top of that, you tend to be rather passive during crew meetings, even when you are a crewmate. And that can really make it difficult for you to defend yourself. That's your main problems, I believe. If you and Lucas were willing to work on that, I think you guys would do a lot better and probably bring you up to B tier. Mark, I feel like I don't know you enough for this, but based on what I do know, I'm going to put you at C tier. Because similar to Lucas and Alex, you are very passive. You are very unwilling to go for these sabotages and kills in a timely manner, and it's just similar to them. It ends up costing you the game. But the reason I'm ranking you higher in C tier is that you are willing to go harder on the on the meetings. You are willing to talk it out. You're willing to defend yourself, and although it's not always convincing, the fact that you're willing to try is a big boon for you. I think if you work on it, you could be a very good imposter, maybe B or A tier. Red. I was going to rank you as F tier, because you were the only person who actively threw when playing as imposter. You would out yourself as imposter, and you would screw over the game for the other imposter. No one liked that, and that's why I was going to rank you in F tier. But recently, you have been improving. Just last night, we played a game together where you almost made it to the very end as imposter. You didn't win, but you played very, very well. You kept your mouth shut when you could have. You gave good excuses when you did. You killed in good places and were in the right places at the right time. And I think you show a lot of promise if you're willing to actually play as imposter. That's why, for now, I'm going to be ranking you in the D tier, with the asterisk of I think you can do better if you try. I think you could be an A tier imposter if you really went for it, because that last game we played together showed a lot of promise. Hestia. A tier. Putting Hestia A tier because they are good at convincing people. That's the long and the short of it. They are willing to say what needs to be said. They're willing to do what needs to be done. And they are good at killing at the right spots. They are not particularly good at the meetings, right? I'd say Hestia is about average at meetings, but they are very good at the actual killing portion of the game, and I think that is a large boon for them. I'd say, definitely say you're on the upper end, Hestia. Jinkerton. C tier. Putting Jinkerton at C tier. Sorry, excuse me. Putting Jinkerton at C tier because I feel that he does not go for the kills. Similar to Lucas and Alex, I feel that Jinkerton is not willing to commit to the kills when he needs to, and I feel he is not particularly convincing during the actual meetings. The only reason I'm ranking you higher than Lucas and Alex is because you know when to talk and when not to talk during the meetings, but doing the actual killings, you are far too late and far too unwilling to do sabotages. You have to, what a lot of people don't think about is the fact that you can time sabotages and kills together. If you kill someone on the right side of the Skeld and then trigger a reactor sabotage on the left side shortly after, almost no one's going to find the body for at least 30 seconds, maybe a minute. That's going to buy you a lot of time to get into another position, get over to med bay, maybe get in security or reactor, and say, it wasn't me, I wasn't there. That's why I think that's a big problem among a lot of the lower tier imposters, is they're not willing to combo. They're not willing to spend their resources to get kills. And you can sabotage as much as you want. It's like a 30-second cooldown. Don't be afraid to sabotage, Jinkerton. And I think if you get good at that, it could bring you up higher tiers. Alright, finally, Tony. Tony, I'm going to be ranking you in B tier. I am ranking Tony in B tier because he is willing to talk during the meetings, and he's willing to give his reasoning. He is also willing to kill during the early game, and he's willing to sabotage. Why is he not higher? He tends to get a bit panicky when he is the imposter. You can tell he's the imposter because, especially late game when there's less people, he gets very aggressive. Especially if someone accuses him. He'll start going on and on about how it couldn't have been him and how he was somewhere else. And that can be a good thing if you have the right tone of voice. And that's a big thing you gotta worry about, tone of voice. Like, if you look at Noah, his tone of voice remains consistent throughout crewmate games, imposter games, all the like. So I think if you were willing to work on your tone, Tony, I think that could bring you up to A tier. Alright, and that's everyone ranked now. No E's, no F's. Please do not take this personally. I tried to rate this as non-subjectively as I could, or subjectively, I don't think I'm using that word right, as fairly as I could, and tried to rate everyone on how I truly believe they play and how they could improve. Alright? So, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye. Also, I'm SSSSS tier.